Ozzy thinks we don't want to hear a new Black Sabbath record or new Black Sabbath music. Okay, this is a reaction video, so I think that it's... I think, to be fair to Ozzy, which this is something that you afford to only a choice few in heavy metal, and it's usually those that are the patriarchs, such as Black Sabbath. Let's read this article, and I'm sure that Ozzy has some landmark wisdom and some great reasons why he feels this way. So let's read this and see what we got. Black Sabbath singer Ozzy Osbourne spoke to Australia's news.com.au, it's a lot of dots, about the band's decision to embark on one final tour next year before calling it quits. He said, "It's the end of Sabbath, and people have been asking, well, I thought you were going to do an album. But the things we discovered are, number one, people aren't really interested in hearing new stuff, and number two, if we were to do an album before the tour, it would take 3 or 4 years to complete the album." I'm just killing the Ozzy voice. "We want to end it on a high note." Okay, he's got a pretty good point here. It would, typically speaking with Sabbath, 13 was in development for quite a while. This was an album that had ties to 7 to 10 years prior to its release. So he does have a point. But just to come out and say that people aren't interested, he's got to have an argument. He's got to have an argument. He continued, "I'd rather end it now, though, than drag it out for another 5 albums. I mean, I'm 67 in December. When we started out, I thought this thing will be alright for a year or two." 50 years later. "One of my greatest memories of anything Sabbath was that we were a band that weren't created by some London fucking business dickhead." I just turned Australian. "We were 4 guys in different bands, and we all got together and made a record." What's really cool is the fact that in heavy metal, you can still see that happen today. You can still see people from different projects come together and make a record, and sometimes it's a hit. Other times it becomes like this really cool gem to have. You see that in rock music sometimes. You also see that like even in the country scene where you see some super groups, pop groups. Where do you see that? That New Kids on the Block and Backstreet Boys collab, and you know there's so many fucking initials in that acronym. It's like letter vomit. It is literally alphabet vomit. It's like the only time I've thought of that, and we're not even going to go with the whole, you know, Michael Jackson, whatever the shit they did in the 1980s, because that was a one-off. So it is a really cool thing. But I still don't see an argument. That's the thing. I'm not seeing an actual argument here. Okay, but there's more. I remember being in a pub in Birmingham, and the manager at the time said to me, "I have some news for you. Your album is entering the British charts at number 17 next week." And I went, "Fuck off! You're winding me up." It remained in the top 10 for over a year, and none of us have looked back since. Asked how he reacted to seeing Sabbath guitarist Tony Iommi fighting cancer, Ozzy said, "When Tony was diagnosed with lymphoma, we were all, oh God, why now? But in saying that, we all got around him." All. I'm sure that Bill Ward cares, but all. He said to us, "Look, if I sit at home in my house thinking I'm going to die, I'll fucking probably will die." That's true. I mean, one of the biggest things that I saw, because I've had family members, unfortunately, battle cancer and lose, is that if you continue to be active, if you continue to, well, this is still not, it has nothing to do with the fucking article. Yes, we know Tony has cancer, and he thinks that if he just sat at home, he'd fucking die. Why don't people want to hear new Black Sabbath music, Ozzy? Why? He's a different person to everyone else. He's one of those guys who say, what do I have to do to fucking beat this? I mean, there's never been a leader of Black Sabbath, but I suppose in the early days, it was him. I would say for longer than just the early days. I would say for longer than just the early days. Yeah. But don't forget, in the very early days, he left and joined Jethro Tull, but then he told them to go fuck themselves and came back. It's very true, but Tony has sort of been there for, a very long time. Black Sabbath has kind of been his baby. He kicked your ass out. We did a whole what if on this. You should go check that out. He has courage in his own conviction. He's fucking unbelievable, and I agree with that, because Tony is certainly the type of gent that seems like whatever he wants to set his mind to, he'll do it. You know, and that's just what you get from watching his music career and watching how adversity has constantly seemed to reap hard work and reward, even through some less than stellar albums, including one of Black Sabbath's albums being one of the 10 worst of all time. You should check out that video too. Ozzy also confirmed in the same interview that he has no intentions of retiring anytime soon, and he revealed that he's going to do a solo album and a solo tour. Epic Records president Sylvia Rohn recently told Billboard.com that Ozzy is working on a really special album. She added, "It's going to be amazing. It's something Ozzy has never done." I would rather see new Black Sabbath material or hear fuck the rest of that. Because there's no actual argument in there. I'd rather hear a new Black Sabbath album than a new Ozzy Osbourne solo album. I'll tell you why. I'll give you a couple reasons. First of all, Scream sucked. I'll just be the first one to say it, and if you disagree with me, that's fine. It's an opinion. Scream sucked. It blew. It was a pale comparison to really some of the other stuff that Ozzy's done in his career. Really, I mean, from a guy who, whenever I was really becoming a teenager, the very first thing that I saw was the Ozman Cometh, and, you know, heard songs like Perry Mason and Back on Earth and, you know, stuff like that, and then, you know, sort of wound the clock backwards, and then saw what he did in the 2000s and heard Scream in 2010 and was like, the fuck is this? I would rather Black Sabbath go into the studio and jack off on their instruments and release it and call it 13 and a half than hear a new... I don't want to hear a new Ozzy solo album right now. Maybe that's just me, but to say that we don't want to see or hear any new Black Sabbath material, but we want to hear more of his solo material is a bit absurd. I understand that the argument that was presented is essentially, this is meant to be a farewell tour. If we did an album, it would extend this by a couple more years, and it would sort of seem like we're just going on forever. Like, I'm reading between the lines here and seeing that that's sort of what he means. That to properly do an album, that's what they would need to do. And I agree that that's fine. I agree that that's fine. First of all, you're 3/4 of Black Sabbath right now. And so it really isn't right for there to be a final disc. It really should be one that includes all 4 of the members, considering all 4 of you are still kicking. But it is also something where you could do a farewell tour, and you could be writing the album while you're on the farewell tour. Maybe let the experience guide your hand a little bit in the writing process. Record the album after the tour is over. Release it and not tour. Maybe play a new song off of it if you have it done while you're on the tour. It's really nothing all that. You are not restricted, or at least you shouldn't be. If your contract says that if you record an album you have to tour for it, that's absurd. You're Black fucking Sabbath. This should be something where, if that's what they want, you should drop that label like a bad hat and say, we will fucking record an album after our farewell tour if we want to, and that's it. But that's the thing. It should be, we don't want to record a new Black Sabbath album, not the people don't want to hear a new Black Sabbath album. Because, quite frankly, people are fucking assholes. I know I'm an asshole. I would love to hear a new Black Sabbath record. 13 was such a great return to form. It was one that showcased why this band constantly seems to be at the forefront of metal discussion. Why they are who they are. It recaptured that magic and did so quite exquisitely. For you to say that I don't want new Black Sabbath material is like you're saying that you're Vince McMahon. You're Vince McMahon, you know what WWE fans want, even though each and every week they go out there and boo the person that you want to make your world champion. And the person is not meant to be a villain, not meant to be a bad guy. That's a really out-of-touch statement. It's a really selfish statement, too. It is. You might find it hard to believe that that Ozzy Osbourne might be a bit selfish with this, but it's true. Just simply state if you don't want to do another Black Sabbath record, if that's the decision that has been made, if that's the choice, just say, we've decided not to do an album. You've already said that, really. You've already said that. We don't need this extra, we didn't need this extra crap. We don't need justification or reverse justification. Whatever the hell you want to call this. You should have just simply said, I'm going to be going solo after this. And that's it. Whenever Tony got cancer, we thought, what the fuck? But we knew that he was going to fight it. Talk about that. Don't talk about this shit that nobody wants to hear new Black Sabbath material. That's a fucking lie. The numbers for 13 not only disprove that, but the fact that people are selfish pricks and would essentially love to hear new Black Sabbath material even if all 4 of you were on fucking life support, just beeping your freaking, life support gear to a beat and having you go, that's what people would buy it. People would fucking buy it. They buy Little Wayne records so they fucking buy it. Don't tell me what I want. Don't tell fans what they want, because you'll get a bad reaction. Not only that, but there's a really good chance that you're completely wrong. There's a really good chance. If you're just satisfied with what 13 sold, even though it was a #1 record, then why even go on a final tour? Just call it quits. Just call it quits. People don't want to hear it. Anybody who wants to hear a new Black Sabbath record, who would want to hear one new Black Sabbath song, one final track, even if it's just called The End, it could be a fucking Doors cover. Put in the comments below, Ozzy is wrong. Absurd.